Welcome back once again to Camp Chapters. I'm here in the library reading some books today, and I wanted to continue our chapter book, The Secret Life of Amanda K. Woods. I believe we left off with Amanda K. Woods finding a four-leaf clover. So let's see what she does with it, huh? We are on Chapter 7, Defiance. Amanda knew that putting up her clover in her and Margaret's room might cause a fight with Margaret, but she did it anyway. She rolled a little bit of melted candle wax into a soft white circle. Then she stuck the circle in the exact middle of the headboard of her and Margaret's bed, at the top where neither of them would bump it. Holding the four-leaf clover gently, she pressed it into the wax. Then she waited for it to fall down, but it didn't. She was a success. It stayed right where she put it, radiating peace and luck. Amanda sat on the bed, waiting for Margaret to show up. Amanda and Margaret were sisters, but they didn't get along. In a roundabout way, the Rome Hotel was the reason. When Margaret had turned 13, she stopped wanting to share a bedroom with Amanda. She asked their dad if he couldn't build a room onto the house for her, but he said no. Margaret couldn't believe it. "But we have money," she said. "We do have money," her father said. "But we're living simply now, so we can improve the hotel. So later, we can live better. Later, I'm almost sure you can have your own room." Margaret, looking as if she would cry, had said, "Can't I at least have my own bed?" But it turned out that the two beds wouldn't fit into the room with all the other stuff they had. Their dad had said he was sorry, but suffering is good for the soul. That was one of his favorite sayings. But Amanda didn't know if he really meant it. Anyhow, Amanda didn't think Margaret suffered so much from not having a room of her own. A lot of Margaret's own friends shared rooms and beds with little sisters. But from that time on, Margaret had made Amanda suffer, because when Margaret didn't get her way, she turned into the boss of the room. She treated Amanda like a mosquito in her room that, just because it was a mosquito, couldn't do anything right. If Amanda opened the window, Margaret made her close it. If Amanda whistled, Margaret said it sounded horrible and made her stop. If Amanda left something lying around, Margaret made her pick it up. If Amanda wanted 2 blankets, Margaret only wanted 1. Besides that, Margaret complained that in the night, Amanda rolled over onto her side of the bed and collided with her. Amanda, looking at the four-leaf clover, no longer felt such strong vibrations of peace. She began to feel nervous. She stood up, shaking her Lyle Leverage hand, then held it up high, palm facing west, toward Montana. "What should I do if she makes me take it down?" she asked Lyle. It took a long time before a Lyle thought came. It was, "Why can she make you?" "She always does," Amanda said. Another Lyle thought came then right away. It was, "Stand up for your rights." Margaret walked in, looking hot and sunburnt. She threw her beach towel down on the bed and glanced at its mahogany headboard. "What is that thing?" she said. "Anybody can see what it is," Amanda said. "Some green bug or something?" Margaret said. "It's not. It's a four-leaf clover," Amanda said. "I found it." "Whatever it is," Margaret said, "I don't want it in there." "It's to divide the bed," Amanda said. "You always say I roll over on your side. Now it'll mark the sides. Maybe I won't roll over so much." "I still don't like it," Margaret said. "You always think you're the boss," Amanda said. "I am not boss of the room," Margaret said. "I am older, that's all. And when something looks stupid, I know it." "It doesn't look stupid to me," Amanda said. "You have everything else in this room your way. You have a desk, I don't. You have a dresser, I don't. You have the bulletin board. That's our bulletin board. It's not my fault nothing of yours is on it," Margaret said. "If I had something to put on it, there wouldn't be any room anyhow," Amanda said. "Your ego is acting up," Margaret said. "It is not," Amanda said. "Don't be silly," Margaret said. She began to reach toward the clover. With her Lyle Leverage hand, Amanda held Margaret's arm away from it. "Margaret," Amanda cried, "I am a person. You are not the only person in this room." Margaret paused. "All right," she said. "Leave the clover until it falls down." She made a face at it and left the room. It's going to bring good luck. It's not going to fall down, Amanda called after her. She didn't know if that was true. Also, Amanda wondered if an ego was something bad. If she had one, did Margaret have one too? Still, looking at the clover made her very happy, because she had stood up for it, because she, just like every other person, had a right to her own ideas, a right to something of her own. Chapter 8, In a Cold Climate. People, Miss Harmon was saying, people, today we are going to talk about climate and how it has changed our lives. In 2 weeks of school, this was not the most interesting thing Miss Harmon had ever said. Under Amanda's geography book, a smaller book, the first rider stuck out. The first rider was an adventure novel Amanda had borrowed from the library. It was very exciting. The first rider lived in the Caucasus 6,000 years ago. His name was Zorak. He and his tribe grew up among mountains near a herd of wild horses. Zorak was the man who first had the idea of riding horses. He tried to persuade his people that they could all do it, but they thought he was crazy for thinking anyone could ever get on top of a horse and stay there. So Zorak decided he was going to have to capture a horse alone. He took a store of food and a leather water bag, his bow and arrows, and a rope, and left his people's camp. Near a river, he found the wild horses' tracks and followed them for many days. Sometimes he got close to the horses, but always they caught his scent and ran. Rocky paths cut Zorak's leather shoes. He ate so little that sometimes he was dizzy. When he was climbing a cliff, a thorn pierced his leather water bag, and all the water ran out. Zorak stopped by a waterfall to patch and refill it. There he kept on, following the horses until they entered a narrow box canyon. With a stone axe, Zorak cut down trees to block the entrance to the canyon. Once he was sure that the blockade of trees and branches would trap the horses inside, he climbed over it to get closer to the horses. Inside the canyon, on top of the high rock, the biggest and most beautiful of the wild horses, the one Zorak had seen from a distance and named Red, stared at him and neighed a challenge. "You see, people," Miss Harmon said, "if the weather gets much colder or much hotter, much wetter or much drier, that eventually changes the plants farmers can grow. In the past, whole civilizations died out because the climate changed and they couldn't grow enough food." Amanda hoped Miss Harmon was concluding. "One way we track the climate," Miss Harmon said, "is to record temperatures day by day and then calculate the monthly averages. Let's do that now for the month of November last year, right here in Rome," she said, and to Amanda's dismay, she quickly wrote 30 numbers on the blackboard. "Now, people," she said, "would each of you calculate the average temperature in November for me?" This was not fair, Amanda thought. There was more than enough arithmetic right in arithmetic class. No other teacher made arithmetic show up in the middle of geography. However, she copied the numbers and added them. She did not take time to divide them by 30. Zorak took his lasso in his wounded and bleeding hands. He called out, "Oh, beautiful red horse, you are mine at last." Miss Harmon called out, "Amanda, tell us the average temperature in Rome for November last year." "It was cold," Amanda said. Miss Harmon seemed to be waiting for details. "Very cold," Amanda said. "Cold as the Caucasus." "Please answer in degrees," Miss Harmon said. Her eyes didn't look friendly. Amanda rushed to finish the problem. It was hard because other students were waving their hands. Out of the corner of her eye, she could see Bob Larson making strange motions as if he were writing on his desktop, and Mary Jane Stoltenberg sliding a paper around on her desk. Amanda did her best to ignore them. The total of all the temperatures was 901. To divide 901 by 30 and get the average, first you could divide it by 10 and then by 3. That would make it easier. Divide it by 10. Mary Jane Stoltenberg had one hand up, and with the other she was flapping her piece of paper over the side of the desk. Everybody's hands were waving. Maybe since Amanda hadn't answered, Miss Harmon would call on somebody else. "Amanda," Miss Harmon demanded. 90.1 degrees, Amanda said. She could feel Miss Harmon's mood, the mood maybe of a teacher waiting for something more. Fahrenheit, Amanda added. Everybody laughed. Miss Harmon frowned. People, she protested, and then she called on Pamela Collins, who had 30.03 degrees. The right answer, just the way Pamela Collins always did. How did you get that answer, Pamela? Miss Harmon asked, and Pamela explained. At recess, Amanda wasn't feeling good. She wanted to be by herself. She stood like the Lone Ranger. But even that didn't feel too good. She checked her Lyle Leverage hand. It maybe had power in it, but it seemed detached from the rest of her. She stood by the side of the school where the water fountain was and used her Lyle Leverage hand to turn it on and off as if it had some problem she was studying. Even though she was busy, Mary Jane Stoltenberg walked straight up to her. Remembering the time Mary Jane had stepped on her, Amanda looked down at her feet to be ready. But Mary Jane didn't step on her Oxfords. Mary Jane said, I wanted to help you. I stuck that paper with the answer on it practically in front of your face, and Bob was drawing the answer with his fingers. You did? He was? Amanda said. She heard the words, but her mind could not grasp them. You don't see anything, do you? Mary Jane Stoltenberg said, and then she walked away. That was chapters 7 and 8. I have a couple of questions here to talk to you about. So, chapter 7. Have you ever had to share something with someone and you didn't want to? Have you ever stood up for something or someone? How did it feel? And for chapter 8, have you ever been called on when you didn't know or haven't been paying attention? Maybe in class, maybe at another time. How'd that make you feel? And has someone ever tried to help you in one of those instances? Did you accept their help? Why or why not? Thank you again for reading along with us, and I hope that you have a wonderful day. That was The Secret Life of Amanda K. Woods. Thank you, Scholastic, for allowing us to read that, and thank you for following along. We hope to see you next time. Until then, have a good day and stay safe. Bye.